Okay, so this isn't really my usual video format, but I feel like I should probably talk about it because every other YouTuber on Earth already has. It's been bugging me, not in like a I'm annoyed kind of way by people asking me, more like a it comes up at every event I work at and I have to pretend I have a new answer every single time kind of way. And the question is, Walt, when's Smash 6? Okay, look, I get it. This has been the question for like a few years now, but every single time someone asks me, the Smash green screen microphone commentator YouTube guy, a position of which I feel I have zero authority, by the way, I'm torn between giving the fun answer and giving the more competitive esports answer. How can I possibly think about how Waluigi will finally get out the hood when Brawl added tripping to the game? I want my competitors to be able to compete, goddammit. So in this video, I'm gonna give you the juicy details on what I actually think about Smash 6 and the prospects for it in the future. Not really the sexy fun version, okay, maybe the sexy fun version, but mostly the honest version, from someone who's been playing a Smash game competitively that came out before some of you were born. Which is a sentence I just said out loud. Cool. Yeah, I love that for me. Thank you to Helix Sleep, who is paid to be mentioned in today's video. Heading into the summer months, it's a great time to upgrade your sleep space with a cooling mattress to make sure you sleep comfortably all summer long. Helix makes premium mattresses that are conveniently shipped right to your door. With over 20 unique mattresses at various price points and firmness to choose from, there's a sleep solution out there for pretty much anyone. My current sleep chariot is the Helix Midnight Lux with their Glaciotex cooling cover. I've been using it for just over a month now, and the reports from Nala are in, and she also likes it. I got matched with the Midnight Lux thanks to Helix's convenient sleep quiz, which only takes a few minutes to fill out and gives you a recommendation based on your sleeping style and environment. Oh, and Helix is also like the most awarded mattress brand like ever. That model won Best Overall Mattress on both Forbes and Wired, and USA Today named Helix one of the most trusted brands of 2026 out of 23,000 brands, so I felt good about making this move, especially because a mattress can be a pretty hefty investment. To be totally honest, I was still pretty skeptical about the whole mattress in a box thing, but I really do enjoy this bed a lot. I can literally feel the Glaciotex cooling cover, like that's not just a marketing ploy, which I think is pretty rad, and I think my sleep has gotten noticeably better. Apparently I'm not alone either, because a whopping 82% of Helix sleep users saw an increase in their deep sleep cycle, according to Helix's Wesper sleep study. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code on screen or visit helixsleep.com/turndownforWalt to take advantage of their Memorial Day sale exclusive partner offer and get 27% off site-wide. Thanks again to Helix Sleep for supporting the channel, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. So before we get into the when and the what, I probably should establish the how, because I think as a channel that grew into almost 200k subscribers strong doing mostly Melee, a lot of the Smash 6 conversation kind of misses this point. Melee was kind of an accident. And no, not the game itself. Obviously, Sakurai made Melee on purpose, but competitively, I don't know if anyone could have imagined how deep the iceberg would go. From wave dashing or smooth landing to L canceling to really, really niche weird shit. The game is truly a bunch of happy little accidents. Like, you know, if Bob Ross made fighting games and also maybe hated the competitive community that formed around them. And I don't say that to be reductive, but to rather set the stage for everything that came after. Sakurai saw what the competitive community did with Melee, and his response was Brawl. This was a game that, by design, made everything slower, floatier, added arguably one of the most centralizing fighting game characters of all time to it, and produced a competitive scene almost completely unfit for competitive play. In so many ways, Sakurai looked at the emergent depth that thousands of players had spent years mastering and are still working towards mastering this day and said, I'ma do my own thing. Which, by the way, it's his game, so I'm not here to fight him on that, but I bring this up because it establishes a pattern that has defined this franchise for over 2 decades, and I would imagine it influenced the design decisions of Ultimate pretty heavily too. What the competitive community wants and what the developer wants are often two very fundamentally different things, and they result in super different ideas about what makes Smash, as either a casual or competitive video game, good. Every single conversation about Smash 6 is happening inside of this tension, whether people realize it or not. If you're a longtime subscriber, you probably don't need me to run you through the whole Melee is still being played competitively in current year despite Nintendo actively trying to kill us shtick, but when I think about that in the context of a possible Smash 6, I'm not just thinking about rosters and stages, although those are two really, really big points. I'm thinking, does Nintendo even understand what makes this franchise endure? Because Brawl, a game that in some ways probably should have killed competitive competitive Melee is hardly played competitively at all anymore, and Melee's still kicking 25 years later. People are still playing 64 competitively, and Ultimate's doing fine too for what it's worth, but yeah, there's some Melee bias there. I probably should have opened with a disclaimer, but I think you guys also probably knew that's where I'd be coming from. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's marketing pitch was 3 words: everyone is here. And they delivered. A whopping 89 characters, counting Echo Fighters, every fighter from every previous Smash title, plus a DLC lineup that reads like a Make-A-Wish list for gamers. I honestly believe this still holds up as one of the most unprecedented and like f***ing crazy moments in gaming. Like, bro, Sora? That is Disney, dude. Like, that's crazy to think about. But even though everyone is here is an undeniably insane moment in gaming history, it may also be a trap as it pertains to Smash 6, because how do you beat everyone? The question now isn't what characters should be in Smash 6, because if you're following up everybody, it's gotta be everybody and Knuckles. It's a way harder sell to take characters away from a sequel game after so many fandoms have already lost their collective minds about Minecraft Steve being in the Mario and Pikachu game. Like, Smash 6, we took away your favorites, doesn't exactly move units. That's pretty bad marketing. Probably the most controversial thing I'll say in this video is that from a pure competitive standpoint, a smaller roster would actually be better. Ultimate players talk about this a good bit, but in a game with 89 characters, the matchup chart is honestly incomprehensible. I just made a video about this, but you're talking about thousands of possible matchups here. It's almost impossible to lab every single matchup in Ultimate, and in truth, it's just not worth it for some. So what ends up happening is you get a competitive meta where a chunk of the cast can become irrelevant, character knowledge and matchup checking can become a core competency, which from my POV is kind of great because it may lead to more breakout character stories, but especially at the mid to low level of competition, you just lose to random pocket picks you've literally never seen before in tournament. And I'm not trying to turn this into a Melee versus Ultimate thing either, because you guys do that plenty enough on X the Everything app, but we kind of saw the same thing happen in this game with Melee in only a 26 character roster, less than a third of Ultimate's cast. Donkey Kong, yes, I have 100 more videos coming, Luigi, and even Yoshi were all characters that were deemed like medium to fine at best, and have each taken a turn chump-checking some of the best players Melee has ever seen. A tighter roster often means deeper character identity, more refined balance, and an overall cleaner and more predictable competitive meta. Every fighting game developer knows this, that's why Street Fighter doesn't ship with 89 freaking characters. Actually, kind of relevant tangent, but just because I was curious and I like numbers, I actually audited like every fighting game ever to see what their roster sizes looked like, and the results were pretty insane. Street Fighter 6 launched with 18 characters, Tekken 8 with 32, Mortal Kombat with 24. The genre baseline for a modern, fully built AAA fighting game is on average somewhere between 20 and 35 characters on release day, which I assume is generally considered healthy. The biggest traditional fighting game roster of all time, King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match, capped out at 66. And even that game is mostly remembered by hardcore FGC heads. And technically there is a fighting game with a bigger roster than Ultimate. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Revolution has a whopping 118 characters, which is almost as many characters as there is filler. Naruto is an arena-style anime fighter though, so apples and oranges, I guess. There was one other time a traditional franchise tried to pull the everyone returns move, and that was Mortal Kombat Armageddon in 2006, with 62 fighters, including every MK character ever made. The game was widely considered unpolished, rushed, and maybe competitively unbalanced. More characters doesn't automatically mean more game. But with all of this in mind, the giant elephant in the room is this: Smash was just not designed to be a competitive game. Ultimate, for its enormous roster, actually did quite a good job at creating a balanced enough game from a competitive standpoint, which is extremely admirable to me. But the vast majority of people who buy Smash Bros are not sweating it out at tournaments or labbing matchups. They're playing probably items on 4 to 8 player free-for-alls with their friends on a Friday night. And for those people, the massive roster is the appeal. The fact that you can fight as Sephiroth or Kazuya Mishima against Kirby is crazy. If I had to make a generous estimate, the competitive community's ideal Smash game would probably have that like 30-ish characters on launch that I just talked about across the rest of the FGC, insane movement depth, rollback netcode, and a ranked ladder. But in fairness, that version of Smash probably also sells a lot worse than Ultimate, because what makes Smash sell is the fantasy of having every video game character like ever in one place. The cruel irony is that the things that make the casual experience magical, the enormous cast, the chaos, the visual marvel, those are exactly things that make the competitive experience that much messier. So when you ask me what the Smash 6 roster should look like, my honest answer is it depends entirely on the game you're talking about. Are you talking about the competitive one, where you want a smaller roster that will be better suited for a competitive meta, or the casually slanted one that actually ships, where every single character times a million and Knuckles is there? It's probably the second one. Okay, so all that said, I am first and foremost a competitive guy, so here's probably what competitive Smash players want from Smash 6 in roughly descending order of how loud they'll be about it on Twitter. Number 1, rollback netcode. This is arguably the biggest one. Slippy exists, the Smash community literally built rollback for a 2001 GameCube game before Nintendo could figure it out for their flagship fighting game on modern hardware. Melee Online through Slippy feels better than Ultimate's native online, and that's not just a meme. Just a few weeks ago, a modder named Blue Jay released an Ultimate Online lag mod that cut Ultimate's offline input lag by literally 50%, and then some guy apparently doxed him. Like, this actually happened? What? Don't do that. That's super weird. Think about that for a second though. Weird doxing shit aside, some completely random people on the internet created some of the most necessary technology to have a suitable online fighting game experience completely for free without any help from Nintendo. So if 6 wants to have any chance of satisfying their competitive player base, this is one of the most important things that need to be addressed. Number 2, movement. This is in part the Melee brain talking, but the reason competitive Melee has stuck around for so long is that the movement feels genuinely incredible. This is what makes the skill ceiling practically infinite. There's no one way to play, and the expressiveness the game allows to its players via its movement is very important to that experience. Number 3, better infrastructure. This isn't just netcode for playing, I'm talking about things like matchmaking, ranked modes, spectator tools, replays, the like. Basically every quality of life feature that other competitive titles have already figured out. The implications for all this stuff goes way beyond the segment that I want to give to it, so let me know in the comments if you want me to like stream or something to talk more about how amazing stuff like that could be. But the short version is that stuff like spectator tools, replays, or even cosmetics could absolutely increase the revenue floor of a competitive title and allow for a better supported event structure. I think these are all pretty reasonable suggestions for someone who wants a superior competitive experience, but the great issue is that Nintendo probably won't do most of this, because Nintendo has pretty much never in the entire history of the franchise made a Smash game designed specifically for competitive players. They've instead made Smash games with a competitive arm that players have adapted into their own vision. Sometimes brilliantly in the case of Melee, and sometimes not so brilliantly. But the design intent has always been to put the casual experience first, and looking at their sales, I can't really blame them for that. So my expectation for Smash 6's competitive features is calibrated somewhere between pleasantly surprised and yeah, that tracks. Which honestly, as a Melee player oppressed by Big Nintendo for most of my life, hey, maybe that's good enough. Here's another elephant in the room, and it's this guy. At the time of this recording, Masahiro Sakurai is 55 years old. He's semi-retired, just having shipped Kirby Air Riders with Bandai Namco, the same team that co-developed Ultimate. He's been making YouTube videos about game design, and he has spoken openly about how 9 continuous years of Smash development nearly broke him physically. Sakurai has said on record he'd work with Nintendo, quote, however he's able on a future Smash, which could mean anything from full creative director to a special thanks credit. But here's the thing, a post-Sakurai Smash may not be the worst thing in the world. And I say this with the most possible respect I can, since his creations have practically built my career. Sakurai created this franchise and defined it, but in doing so, he also defined its limitations. Almost every single design decision that competitive players have been frustrated by for the last 2 decades, the resistance to rollback, the casualification of Brawl, the ambivalence towards competitive play in general, those may be Sakurai decisions. They come from a specific vision of what Smash should be, something that, like I said before, exists in complete contrast to what a competitive player base tends to want. A new director doesn't necessarily have to carry that baggage. A new director could look at what the fighting game genre has become in 2026, where games like Guilty Gear Strive, Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, 2XKO, these are all shipping with rollback and ranked play and robust competitive infrastructure. But on the contrary, a new director could also very obviously make it worse. There's a version of Smash 6 that's a soulless corporate product that loses everything that made the series special, which is a real risk. Smash without Sakurai feels wrong, and it could end up being just another platform fighter in the wind. Okay, so enough philosophizing. Here are some of my predictions for the possible next Smash, and you can clip me in whatever, I don't care. I think in the short term, it is very possible we get Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on Switch 2, like a deluxe, or maybe not a deluxe version, but perhaps just like a remaster with some quality of life stuff. Ultimate has already reported to have much faster loading times on the Switch 2, so I think this just makes sense and is essentially free money. With the yen becoming weaker and the cost of like everything going up, it's honestly a much more cost-effective option for a company to just, you know, re-release the same game. Nintendo probably wants a bespoke game for the new console, and Smash has always been a system seller. The Switch 2 launch window is already pretty thin on first-party stuff, and porting Ultimate is the lowest effort, highest return play they can make. It's not sexy, but it's smart. Medium term, maybe in like the next 5 or so years, I think we could very possibly see a new Smash. They've already teed this idea up pretty heavily with the new Mario movie. I'm sure you've all seen the spoilers by now, but I won't go further than that. I'm not sure how Sakurai will want to participate, if at all, but I imagine he's still credited as a producer or a consultant of some kind. We put Bandai Namco back at the helm, and after Kirby Air Riders wraps with its post-launch support, the team probably needs a new project, so I don't know, this makes sense to me too. As for what the game would look like, I truly don't know. There's a world where we would get a roster that's more compact than Ultimate's, say 50 to 60 characters at launch, with the legacy characters locked in and the more niche picks getting cut or saved for DLC. That could allow marketing to lean into whatever the new hook is. Maybe it's the Echo/Generations thing like Relax said, where you just pick a character and get a bunch of their variants. Maybe it's a bigger single player mode, or maybe it's something we haven't thought of. But the truth of it all is I think this option is probably way less likely, or if they were to do it, it's a much worse product than the bigger and badder everyone is here one. On that note, the other option is the world where they go even bigger and even further beyond than the epic everyone is here event. How you one up that, I'm still not sure, but if you do, we're talking on the order of hundreds of characters, which will make some absolutely nightmarish matchup charts in the competitive scene. Will it have rollback? God, I hope so. Every other major fighting game has gotten the memo by now, so if a Smash 6 comes out and it ships with delay-based netcode, that is just embarrassing. But I don't know, I've also learned to never bet on Nintendo doing the obvious thing, so I'll give it a 60% chance. If you spent this long listening to me make non-controversial claims and waffle around about the future of the Smash series, thanks, and here's one more thing. I have really high hopes for a Smash 6. Like I said before, this channel was built on the series and it has meant so much to my entire life. But whatever ends up happening, the community will do what it's always done. Take whatever Nintendo gives us and build something better out of it. Whether you're of the casual or competitive mind, I think that's what makes this series so special to so many. Thanks for watching. Big thanks to Avishua Stein, Bobby Wasabi, Brent Mukai, Carter Roberts, Dark Genix, Eric is Cool, Gustavo Cantu Fernandez, James Fabman, Justin Duncan Mills, Kyle Carlin, Marshall Bradley, Rosewood, and Sam Ray.